Apple. I want to go back to that rally that we saw just taking place moments ago in D.C., where 5,000 people came to hear Donald Trump and Ted Cruz talk about why they don't like this deal with Iran. Joining me here right now, former UN Ambassador John Bolton, Town Hall political editor Guy Benson, and joining us by the phone is former Chuck Schumer aide Chris Hahn. I'm going to start with you, Ambassador Bolton. Your reaction to what you saw there from both Senator Cruz and Donald Trump and their vehement opposal to this deal.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that in both the House and the Senate, there's a bipartisan majority against the Vienna Agreement. And one way or another, that'll be reflected in votes over the next several days. But unfortunately, it won't be enough to stop a presidential veto. If it gets to that point, there will not be, it looks like, enough votes to override it. So the president's going to get his deal. And I think the proper approach is to get ready for the next president, hopefully a Republican, who will abrogate the deal as soon as possible. Can
that be done? I mean, we've also heard, let's not forget, Ambassador Donald Trump say earlier that, you know, a deal's a deal. And while this may be one bad deal, can you actually negate the whole thing?
Of course, it's an executive agreement. Even if it were a treaty, a president could abrogate the treaty. The issue is that this agreement is a dagger pointed at the heart of American national security, the national security of some of our key allies. It's not a deal that can be made to work. We're stuck with it for as long as Barack Obama is president, but that's why I think it should be a key issue in the 2016 election.
Well, I heard Chris Hahn jumping in there. You disagree? Are we not stuck with it?
I think the ambassador should know better. He did serve some time at the United Nations. This is a six-party deal, and the United Nations is a part to it as well. And you would need to get all those parties involved to reinstitute sanctions against Iran, which they are not willing to do, which is why, it's important. Look, I'm dubious on this deal. I'm not happy with this deal. But it is what it is, and it's not something that Donald Trump or Ted Cruz or whoever the next president is can easily walk away from. Donald Trump has been very clear about it. He said, look, I'm good at getting out of contracts. I'm good at prosecuting contracts. Whoever the next president is, has to make sure that they prosecute this contract to the full extent of it and make sure that the Iranians are upholding their end of the agreement. And when and if they don't, they need to prosecute them appropriately.
Let's share with you all some sound that just came into us here. We heard Donald Trump there speak moments ago there at the Capitol, expressing his displeasure for this deal, making it clear to everyone that we have some, quote, very, very stupid leaders. Listen to this.
Never, ever, ever in my life have I seen any transaction so incompetently negotiated as our deal with Iran. And I mean never. We are led by very, very stupid people. Very, very stupid people. We cannot let it continue. We are a country that owes $19 trillion. We lose everywhere. We lose militarily. We can't beat ISIS. Give me a break.
One of the things, gentlemen, that struck me as interesting in this is that we heard a lot of specifics from Ted Cruz. He talked about the $100 billion that Khamenei's going to get and the disastrous effects that could have. By lifting sanctions, you're giving that economy there in Iran a big injection of cash. He says and believes that Iran is going to use that cash to create a nuclear weapon. Guy Benson, a lot of specifics from Senator Cruz, but we heard much more big picture, big stroke ideas there from Donald Trump. Why do you think?
Well, because Trump is more visceral, and in this case, Ted Cruz, who's a trained attorney, is more prosecutorial. And I think both of them made important points against this deal, which, again, has become, as the political press is so wont to do, they turn everything into a partisan battle, where in this particular case, it should not be a partisan issue. There are dozens of Democrats on Capitol Hill who disagree with the deal, who want to vote against the deal. not because they're disloyal Democrats or they're disloyal to President Obama, but because they look at the deal on the merits and come to the conclusion, correctly in my view, that it is not in the interest of the United States, it is not in the interest of our great friend Israel, and that the Iranians have extracted one unacceptable concession after the next in the process of this years-long negotiation. And now we have people like Hillary Clinton and John Kerry and Barack Obama saying, all of that bad work that we did over the last 2 years, it's baked into the cake. It's a done deal. We're handcuffed by our own incompetence, so we have to go forward. It's such a dispiriting excuse.
You know, it's interesting that you say that about Democrats. Chris Hahn is typically more on the liberal side than on the conservative side. And I know, Chris, that you're concerned about this deal as well. You don't think it's good for America. Why?
No, look, I mean, again, I don't trust the Iranians. I would have liked to see a phased-in approach to them reclaiming some of the money that's been held by the international countries since the sanctions have begun, to prove that they were actually living up to the deal, and as they prove it, get more of that money back. But that's not there. And this is the deal that we have right now. And look, again, I mean, I'm with Senator Schumer. I would not be voting for this deal, but I'm not a senator. And, I don't hear coming out of the right, though, any legitimate way to fix it, any legitimate concern. And a lot of them, quite frankly, haven't even read the deal. I don't think Donald Trump read the deal. When he talks about the worst deal ever, I mean, some of the deals he made in Atlantic City were pretty bad. Pretty bad for Atlantic City, pretty bad for him, pretty bad for the people who work there.
Really quick, we've got some news coming into us on this right now. Our own Trad program is reporting from Capitol Hill that the House is expected to consider 3 alternatives to the bill to reject the Iran deal. Fox has learned that the House GOP leadership is now eyeing a new course for handling the Iran deal, and the House would look at 3 pieces of legislation instead and not consider the Iran deal. Ambassador, as you hear this news, again, just coming into us from Capitol Hill and our own Chad program saying that this would put the House and Senate at odds with the bills they're considering. What is the likelihood, in your view, that this actually really happens, that we are in a situation where the sanctions are lifted and we're doing business with Iran?
Well, I think the sanctions will be lifted. I don't think the president particularly cares what Congress does. He's already had Secretary Kerry signal that he wouldn't enforce the sanctions even if they were kept in place. So I think, unfortunately, we're stuck in a situation where there's just not much that can be done from the American perspective until we get a new president to get us out of this wretched deal. All
right, we're going to continue following this story. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me here today.